In this video, we will focus on 7 steps for developing a money mindset, which will help you get money out of the equation, meaning understanding how to make your money work for you so you can reach financial independence earlier in your career, giving you the ability to craft your job and optimize your life for joy and fulfillment. As always, timestamps are in the description below. We all want to be wealthy, but many of us have been so busy in our careers that we have not taken the time to learn about the history of the stock market and are not optimally using the best wealth generating machine on the planet. The good news is that it has never been so easy to invest and at such a low price ever. This is the video I wish I had when I started investing. What I will also do in this video is to include many of my favorite quotes from the book, Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness from Morgan Housel. Let's start with some quotes here. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want to do today. The ability to do what I want, when you want, with whom you want, and for as long as you want is priceless. It's the highest dividend money pays. Money's greatest intrinsic value is its ability to give you control over your time. Doing something you love on a schedule you can control can feel the same as doing something you hate. So let's talk about the 7 steps. Step number 1, risk of not investing your money. I had a colleague tell me once that she does not invest her money and keeps it in cash because she lost money in the 2008 stock market crash. And she happens to be one of the most talented MRI radiologists I know. We all have our unique money experiences which shape our investment philosophies, but clearly her doctor smarts had not translated to money smartness, a problem called domain dependence, and physicians get hunted like whales. We're a big target and can be killed with a spear. Yes, that's the reputation of physician investors in the finance industry. As Morgan would say, people do crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. Ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if they have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. The annual inflation rate for United States currently is 6.2%. This is from the data published in October 2021. Inflation rate of 6% per year means that if your shopping costs $100 today, and if inflation stays at 6%, the same basket of shopping will cost you $106 in a year's time. But watch this, in 10 years, the same shopping will cost you a whopping $182. Between 2011 and 2020, inflation has been rather low, ranging between 0.7 to 3%. Before you start investing, you might want to consider a 3-month and later on a 6-month emergency fund for unexpected medical bills, roof replacement, flooding in your basement, etc. Online banks such as Ally Bank are currently offering an annual percentage yield of 0.55% for a high-yield certificate of deposit. Bank of America is offering a rate of 0.05% on a 13-month CD. You could get a little higher rate of 0.6% tax-free by investing in municipal bonds, ticker symbol VWITX. Series I bonds, which can be purchased directly from treasurydirect.com, are currently offering 7% interest rate with interest reinvested automatically. And you will only owe taxes in these funds once you sell them. So that's another good option to consider. Step number 2, let's talk about the most powerful personal finance concept, compounding. To quote Albert Einstein, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. To illustrate the difference compound interest makes, let's compare twins Jane and John, who both entered the workforce on their 22nd birthday. Jane decided she would direct $500 per month of her net income to savings and maintain this practice until she was 30, while John decided this money was better directed to his lifestyle expenses and decided at 52 he would start investing for life beyond paid employment and started to put aside the equivalent of $500 per month. The bottom line is they both directed $500 per month to savings for 8 years. Only Jane did it much earlier. Jane used time and compounding to her advantage. At 60, Jane ended up with $131,628, while John did pretty badly at $54,229. The sooner you start off, the better off you will be. It's like planting oak trees. A year of growth will never show much progress, 10 years can make a meaningful difference, and 50 years can create something absolutely amazing. Here are some other lines from the book that got my attention. One of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't to raise your income, it's to raise your humility. You can save for just saving's sake. Wealth is hidden. It's income not spent. Wealth is an option not yet taken to buy something later. Its value lies in offering you options, flexibility, and growth to one day purchase more stuff than you could right now. Step number 3, let's discuss some contrarian ideas about one of the biggest misconceptions. My house is my biggest investment. I live in a Seattle suburb and houses are so pricey here. There are some good reasons for owning my house. The number one reason should be to have a stable living place and if you have kids, to raise your family. A house is a relentless ongoing drain on the cash reserves of the owner, endless parade of repairs and maintenance. Houses are expensive to buy and sell too, approximately 2.5 to 3% buying and sellers' agent commissions, 3% taxes, a total of 9% of the sale is lost in the transaction itself. House prices are also subject to fortunes of the area. If Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, and Microsoft were to all leave Seattle, real estate here would be decimated. A house is also something that locks its owner in one geographical area, limits our options, and keeps us docile for their employers. A house is our biggest and yet the most fragile investment, easily damaged by weather, fire, vandalism, and the like. It's also heavily taxed, 1% in my area. I'd recommend you check out this blog post by J.L. Collins, author of the book The Simple Path to Wealth, for more reasons why your house is a terrible investment. And if you're like me and want to run your own numbers, check out Is It Better to Rent or Buy post in the New York Times. I ran the numbers for a modest $1 million Seattle home, and it turned out that renting is better. Like I said, I have different reasons for owning my home, my family, and it's not necessarily an investment vehicle. Number 4. So why should we buy stocks? So most of us want to be millionaires. That's right. The psychology of this thought is very interesting. When most people say they want to be a millionaire, what they actually mean is like, I'd like to spend $1 million. And that is literally the opposite of being a millionaire. Buying the stock is like owning the company, getting paid its dividends, and then ultimately building a dividend investing portfolio. The way to think about this is your money is an army and you're building every dollar, which is functioning as a soldier in your army, working only for you. Buying individual stocks, however, is risky. There are some recent fads like the FANG stocks, comprising Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Alphabet, formerly Google, and these are doing well. There's also talk of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and if you're still thinking of these, you're probably chasing performance. The past is not predictable for future performance, and when you buy individual stocks, you take on what's called uncompensated risk. This is a risk that can be diversified away by using a diversified portfolio of investments, such as those in mutual funds. Don't buy individual stocks, as most people end up losing money in the long run. Let me tell you my radiology Kodak story here. As someone who trained in the era where we printed films in radiology, Kodak printers were printing hundreds and thousands of films every day across the planet. Then we got PAX and everybody went filmless. My former resident colleagues and I, who at the time thought it was a great idea to own Kodak stocks, watched in horror as Kodak became a penny stock and then went bankrupt, and we lost all of our money invested in Kodak. Thankfully, it wasn't that much. There are tax advantages for an investor. Capital gains are taxed favorably than your day job. Let's say you're doing really well and making $500,000 as family income in the United States, your federal income tax bracket would be 35%. But if the same money was made as a long-term capital gains tax, your tax rate for an investment held for more than 1 year, your rate would be 20%. For reference, here are the 2022 federal income tax brackets. If you had a few investments in your accounts go south this year, these underachiever may come in handy when it's time to reconcile with the IRS. Through a strategy called tax loss harvesting, investments that are in the red can be your ticket to a lower tax bill up to $3,000 a year. Deducting those losses can offset some or all of the capital gains you might owe on investments that you sold for a profit that year. You have to be careful of wash sales rules, meaning your loss is disallowed if within 30 days of selling the investment, either before or after, you or even your spouse invest in something that is identical, that is the same stock or fund, or in IRS's words, substantially similar to the one you sold. Number 5, here's an idea that you may not have heard about before: tails drive returns. JP Morgan analyzed Russell 3000 index since 1980. 40% of all Russell 3000 stock components lost at least 70% of their value and never recovered this over this period. Effectively, all of the index's overall returns came from just 7% of its component companies that outperformed by at least 2 standard deviations. 4 in 10 public company stocks go to zero over time. Russell 3000 has increased more than 73-fold since 1980. 40% of the companies in this index were effectively failures, but 7% of the components that performed extremely well were more than enough to offset the duds. How you behaved as an investor during a few months in late 2008 and early 2009, and more recently in early 2020, will likely have more impact on your lifetime returns than everything you did in the last 2 decades. Hours and hours of boredom are punctuated by moments of sheer terror. Our success as an investor will be determined by how we respond to these punctuated moments of terror, not the years spent on cruise control. Financial success is a soft skill where how we behave is more important than what we know. An investing genius is one who can do the average thing when all around us are going crazy. Now, there are fields where you must be perfect every single time. A radiologist, for example, can't afford to miss a cancer or a pulmonary embolism, which could cause someone to potentially die, and we may end up getting sued. I'm planning a video on what happens when a physician gets sued. Then there are fields where you must be at least pretty good nearly all the time. A restaurant chef, for example. Investing, business, and finance are just not like these fields. It's not whether you're right or wrong that's important, but how much money you make when you're right and how much money you lose when you're wrong. You can be half the time and still make a fortune. Number 6, keep fees low. The lower the expense ratio, the higher the return. If you invest $30,000 a year for 30 years in investments that make 8% per year before expenses, the difference between an expense ratio of 0.19% and an expense ratio of 1.11% is a difference of $569,000. Some physician investors use an assets under management fee. Let's see what Vanguard has to say about that. Assets under management fee, you could be doing things better and not gifting away almost 40% of your final account value. 2% doesn't sound so small anymore, does it? The United States Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, also has a document on their website discussing this topic, and I quote, "Over time, even small ongoing fees can have a big impact on your investment portfolio." Step number 7, finally, the case for index mutual funds. I want to talk about 3 things here. First, you get instant massive diversification. Consider my favorite mutual fund, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. At the time of this video in December 2021, it holds 4,156 stocks. Yes, its 6 largest holdings are the usual suspects: Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Facebook, and Tesla. The top 10 holdings make up 26% of the fund. Now check this out. If Apple loses 40% of its value, my investment in this fund would only fall by 2%. And if Tesla gets completely wiped out, my investment only falls by 1.2%. That's the power of instant massive diversification. There's also no manager risk. The invested money just follows the index and you get market performance. The ease of its use is the main reason why mutual funds make up all of my available investments in my 401ks, 457bs, IRAs, 529s, and the health savings accounts that we have. The funds do all the paperwork and the communication. All we have to do is put the money in, and even that can be automated, and literally you can forget about it for decades if you want. There's also the added advantage of economies of scale. There are actual costs of buying and selling stocks, such as commissions and bid-ask spreads. Vanguard essentially gives 100% of its lending income back to fund investors. For the Vanguard Small Cap ETF, ticker symbol VB, that's about $45 million a year. That works out to be about 0.05%, essentially paying for its entire expense ratio. Individual investors can't beat that. All of my investments are just in 6 index mutual funds that I will link to my personal finance playlist on the end screen. I also share my current allocation model in those videos. Set and forget, diversify, and let the investments track the market. Mutual funds are the best way for the vast majority to invest. Stop speculating, stop trying to beat the market, control what you can control, and quit worrying about the rest. Eliminate the effects of greed and fear from your financial life. Make a reasonable written investing plan, also called an investor policy statement, a topic for another video. Fund it adequately. Follow it even when you wonder if you should. Yes, mutual funds are boring. Good investing is boring investing. And if the most exciting thing in your life is your investments, you are doing life all wrong. Viewers in the UK can invest directly in these mutual funds through Vanguard or through Fidelity. Viewers in India and other countries should look for several offerings that are available for index funds and choose the ones with the lowest fees and stay indexed with the broad exposure to the United States and international stock markets. If you enjoyed this video on the money mindset and want to learn how to use financial independence as a burnout antidote, check out this video where I talk about it in great detail. Do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Happy investing, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.